Now, we know that we're just pretty close to an election. Now, let me tell you something. When you vote for a president, you aren't just voting for that candidate. You're also voting for his or her vice president. That person is one heartbeat away from the presidency. So it matters who's in the bullpen. So voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris is also voting for either J.D. Vance or Tim Walz. Hopefully, you've had some opportunities to observe both of these candidates, and you get an idea of what they believe, what they've done in their lives, and whether you feel they could and would lead this nation through some tough times if called upon. Now, I was once the lieutenant governor of Arkansas before I was governor. It's a lot like being vice president. The lieutenant governor who served with me during my tenure as governor was Win Rockefeller, who was a great guy. And yes, he was from that Rockefeller family. But he was also a very humble and caring public servant. I honestly believe he would have followed me as governor, but he was diagnosed with cancer in the middle of his campaign and had to drop out of the race. Sadly, he died the same year. It was a great loss for the state and, frankly, for me personally. But Win, I thought, had the best description of the role of lieutenant governor, and frankly, it applies to the vice presidency. He would say that being lieutenant governor is like being a spare tire. You're supposed to be out of the way, kept in the dark, but stay all pumped up just in the case of an emergency. Pretty good description. John Nance Garner, who was vice president during the presidency of Franklin Roosevelt, famously said that the vice presidency wasn't worth a bucket of warm spit. Well, actually, he used a different term than spit, but his original language wasn't appropriate for public consumption back then, or for that matter, not appropriate for a family audience today either. But when you vote for a president, you're voting for far more than just the president and even the vice president. You're also voting for the 15 cabinet secretaries that the president will appoint to lead the executive branch agencies of the federal government. From the State Department, Defense Department, Treasury, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, Agriculture, Education, Energy, Veterans Affairs, Transportation, Labor, as well as the Attorney General who will run the Justice Department. And beyond that, the president will hire around 7,000 other federal employees who will implement his or her policies. Oh, and there will be over 200 ambassadors that the president will appoint who will carry out the president's foreign policy as they represent us as the official U.S. representatives to all the nations of the world. So you're just not electing one person or even two people. By voting for a president, you're voting on thousands of people that he or she, God help us, you're voting for thousands of people who will be put in place to run the day-to-day operations of the federal government. In many ways, please know, they will have way more impact on your daily life than the president will. And this is why you need to think beyond what you like or don't like about the candidate for president, because they're going to delegate most of their power to people whose names you will never know, but whose actions you certainly will feel. So what kind of people will your candidate delegate their power to? And will they represent the values and policies that you believe will be the best for you and your family? Because I'm telling you, that will ultimately be way more important than what a candidate says in a speech or in some campaign ad. I know Donald Trump pretty well. Frankly, I like him. And I agree with him on his policies for lower taxes, less government regulation on businesses, strong pro-Israel policies, a secure border, protecting the First and Second Amendments, and exerting a strong presence in the world to cause our adversaries to fear us. I agree with an America First agenda. And while I wish he was even stronger on the issue of sanctity of life, I'll tell you he's 100 times stronger than his opponent and her running mate, who believe in no restrictions on abortion, even if it means an abortion up until the moment of birth. But it's also about who would be appointed and employed and what they would do with the power that would be granted to them. That makes my vote a whole lot easier to make. and I hope it helps yours as well.